BBOR Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. BlackBoxNed88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. And just a quick reminder, every Monday is Zodiac Mondays. Wednesday is an Ask Me Anything. That's an AMA, so please drop your questions below for things that you would like discussed here on the show. And Friday is an Anything Goes. Any subject is fair game, mostly talking about true crime, serial killers, the Zodiac Killer, but any subject is welcome. All right, so please share some ideas in the comment section about what you would like to hear about on this channel, and let's get started. Okay, hello everybody. Well, what else can I say other than Happy Thanksgiving? This is actually being recorded on the day before Thanksgiving, so happy DB Cooper today. I saw Drew Beeson sharing that on Instagram and Facebook too. I think that the day before Thanksgiving is DB Cooper Day. And I did an episode recently talking about D.B. Cooper, which was the suspect list, going through some of the D.B. Cooper suspects. I didn't get to all of them, and some people have even made some recommendations for future episodes, so lots of things to look out for here on Black Box Online Radio. Always inviting you guys to like and subscribe. But from my family to yours, once again, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you're going to have a good holiday. My family's doing something that we've never done before. We're not actually going to be doing the Thanksgiving celebration on Thursday. We're actually doing it on a Saturday. I've heard of families who have done this because it's the only time that everybody can get together. Anyway, that's our plan this year, but I hope that you're going to have a good holiday, and we are entering into the official holiday season. For me, I really think the holidays begin on October 31st, thereabouts, maybe even Columbus Day, even though I've said many times Columbus Day is not a real holiday. It's definitely on the back burner of all back burners when it comes to holidays. But with Halloween, that's when I think the holiday season really begins, because we have Halloween, Thanksgiving, and then everything that goes on in December. But I just view the last 2 months and one day of the year as just the holidays. So I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season, a wonderful Black Friday, maybe if you want to watch the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, or lots of football and so on, however you choose to celebrate. But this is also an opportunity to talk to you guys about some announcements as well as what's going on with the channel, and just to show my gratitude and support. Not exactly support. Thank you for your support as fans and listeners who have been tuning into Black Box Online Radio 3 times a week, or even 4 if you have the debunking videos that have come out on the weekend. Thanks for watching that stuff and listening to all the episodes. You guys rule. You're amazing, every single one of you. But there are going to be some new things happening on BBOR in the future. There might even be some changes in the lineup. I might be doing more on the other channel, AstroPsych 400, which is going to, I guess, get restarted after January 1st. That's what I'm planning on anyways, and hence the name. It's going to talk a little bit more about psychology, but I will be doing the podcast for sleep on that one next year. Now, I'm not even sure what's going to be in the cards for things that are not related to YouTube. So many plans are up in the air, but I'm hoping to keep up with the show as long as I can and try to put out Black Box Online Radio consistently. I love talking to you guys and discussing this material in the comment section about the Zodiac Killer and other true crime cases. And one true crime case that I do want to follow is something that I don't do on this channel that much, and that is to follow the news. When I talk about the Zodiac Killer or something like D.B. Cooper, those things happened 50 years ago, and this is actually the 50th anniversary of D.B. Cooper. But 50 years, I mean, those are cold cases. But there's a trial that I'm definitely going to be following, and that is involving Francisco Alejandro Mendez. He is the man who has been accused of murdering Dwane Simmons and shooting Corey Ballantyne, who is an NFL cornerback playing with formerly of the New York Giants and then the New York Jets. Corey Ballantyne and his best friend Dwane Simmons were shot by Francisco Mendez, allegedly, and I did an episode about him called just that, the attempted murder of Corey Ballantyne and the murder of Dwane Simmons. And the trial for Francisco Frankie Mendez, as he was known, begins on November 29th of this year. So there will be some episodes coming out about that on Black Box Online Radio. Also approaching the anniversary of the murder of Joan Webster. And there was one true crime case that I also think is important to remember, and that is one that I did on this channel called The Murder of Christopher Mader. I learned about this case in a very different way. I was just on Facebook, and I was trying to find somebody I knew that had almost an identical name. I went to school with a guy named Chris Mader, and I was trying to find him on Facebook, and I put in his name to the search box, and all of these tributes to Christopher Mader came up, and it was talking about a different person who had the same name, same spelling, and everything, but he was murdered after a lengthy shift that was the night before Thanksgiving, and I learned from that 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 is one of the busiest nights of the year for bars. Like, going out to the bar, lots of drinking happens the night before Thanksgiving, and that's why he was targeted, because he was a bartender, of course, carrying some money on him, so to speak. And I'm going to attach some links to the episodes that I've done in the past on the murder of Dwane Simmons and the murder of Christopher Mader. The absolute best way that you can support Black Box Online Radio is just listening to content. I don't accept any donations. I mean, yes, there's some things that, like the Teespring page and Amazon.com for my book, but the absolute best way to support the channel is just by listening, and I'll attach some links to those episodes I was just talking about. Maybe you'll hear something that gets you curious. Maybe you'll hear something that will strike up some type of idea in your mind, and weigh in the comment section if you like, and just all of that. It's all welcome. Anything that you would like to say. For the episodes that I am attaching, though, they were recorded in a different way, so it's best to keep the volume on low. Just a friendly suggestion, because they were definitely recorded in a different manner. But you can also download the show for free at LaunchPad One. That's another great way to support the show. Just go over to LaunchPad One and download Black Box Online Radio. Take it on the go anywhere and anyhow, and you can get the audio as a pure podcast there. If you would like to download the video version, you can use YouTube Premium, but you do have to pay for that one. Launchpad 1 is free. And you can go over to Amazon.com and look at my book, Killer on a White Horse, by me, Ned DeHaan. It's a novel murder mystery inspired by the Zodiac Manson connection, but it is fictional. And there's always the Teespring page. Feel free to have a look at some of the merchandise. And remember, being weird is not a crime. There also might be a few infrequencies in the episodes that have been coming out, because last week I did not do an AMA or a debunking video because I was working on my next book, which I wanted to have out by Christmas, but I just don't know if it's going to happen. It still might, but I don't want to rush it, because did you ever watch the movie Toy Story 2? There's a very minor character in there who's actually repairing toys, hence Toy Story 2, and he says, you can't rush art. And I really don't want to rush this next book. It's going to be a couple short things put together. Some of it is genuinely my older writings from my early 20s, and one of them, the thing that I'm actually working on right now, is recreating something completely that I wrote in my early 20s. I think I was 21, maybe thereabouts, when I was writing this thing, and I no longer have the original manuscript, so I'm just recreating a new version of it, so to speak, and it's going to be three small things that are going to be put together in the form of one book, and that will come out as soon as possible. And I can't wait to finish that one so I can start the next writing project, because, as I said, Killer on a White Horse was inspired by the Zodiac Manson connection, but for the book that I finally figured out how to just outline and create and to go through all the steps, I just need to put it into writing, is going to be about the Zodiac Killer full circle theory. And that's meaning that starting with the murder of Ray Davis in 1962, who was a taxi driver, and how that's meant to mirror the murder of Paul Stein in 1969. And I don't even know if I should release this at this time, but if Killer on a White Horse was inspired by the Zodiac Manson connection, this full circle theory book, whatever title it has, I haven't written a word, I have no idea what to title it, it's heavily going to be inspired by the Richard Gaikowski Zodiac Killer theory, but I don't even know if I should say any more than that because I don't want to say something that I'm going to regret. How do I know what direction the story is going to take, even if it's mapped out in my mind? I haven't written a single word yet. What if it ends up taking some different twists and turns? Back when I was in college, I was all about writing. I just wanted to be a novelist, and for a while a screenwriter, and for a while a poet, and anything really. I was just all about writing. And I mean, I was all about writing for maybe 10 years before that, but I didn't actually do it. I mean, I just kind of would come up with these ideas. Yeah, I'm going to write a novel one day. But back in college, I actually did create things, and I did all the time. I mean, I put so much of my free time and energy into writing, staying up late, writing something that's 100 pages long, like half of a novel, and then I would have no idea where the novel is going, no idea how to finish it. So then I would just scrap it and then sit around, do nothing for 3 weeks, and then start something new. So the reason why I thought that it was difficult was because I had to surprise myself. And during the early pages of whatever book I was working on, I could surprise myself. Like I could be like, okay, I've created this new character. Now this is going to happen. Now that's going to happen. Now this is going to happen. But as the story would go on, the possibilities would become fewer and fewer. I mean, there's only so much I can do now. The same way that life is, the same way that life happens, and you're like, oh yeah, I'd really like to do that. Wait a second, I have some reasons why I cannot. It was just that exact concept, but done in the fictitious form. So they would just end up not getting finished. And the thing that I'm working on for the next book now, these little shorts, it's just like that. It is just like that. I started something. I think I got to maybe like page 110 or 120, and I just didn't know where to go with it. However, the new and improved version is going to be much, much shorter, but as I said, there will be three things put together into one book, so to speak, and it's going to be quite different than Killer on a White Horse. The especially two of them will be quite different than Killer on a White Horse, I should say, in just some different types of themes that are going to be explored, and there's a very different tone of writing with the second piece in the book. So I'd be curious to know what you guys think. As soon as possible, that's going to be released. So lots of new things coming out on Black Box Online Radio, and the best way to follow along with the channel is to subscribe to it. So I invite you once again, subscribe to BBOR, and you can also tell your friends and family about this. Back in 2011, when I was first learning about the Zodiac Killer, I, as I said, I heard an interview with Lyndon Lafferty on the Savage Nation, and I wanted to know more about this particular mystery. I was listening to a lot of talk radio at that time, and everybody, whether it was, Rush Limbaugh or Bill O'Reilly, even back when he did the Radio Factor, Michael Savage, and Howard Stern. How about him? Absolutely. I listened to a lot of Howard Stern. I mean, all the famous names. No, I'm sure if you're going to throw out the name of a famous radio host, yeah, I probably heard some of that stuff. That was the first time that I truly just got on YouTube and listened to talk radio, for large segments of this. And I was just thinking, wow, I could do that. So anyone can make a YouTube channel, right? So I would go back to whatever place I was living in, and I would try to just make YouTube videos. And I wanted to do it in a talk radio style, like how the guys who are very famous say that they do it without a script and they just do it in a free flow kind of way, where even though they know exactly what they're going to say, it sounded very conversational. It sounded very informative. There's a lot of presentation, like, this is my idea, and these are the reasons that support it. And some people aren't even afraid to, pick up the boxing gloves, verbally speaking. And I wanted to do something like that was even a little bit brash. And the first lesson that I learned was you can't simply just start at the top and be like someone who's going to try and pick a fight with the audience if you're not famous. Because other than that, you're just being some weirdo on the internet who's saying mean things to 12 people and no one will understand where you're coming from. So it really was an uphill battle, but it was almost impossible, though, to actually just sit down and talk in a free-flowing way, because even though I had graduated college, I still didn't really know that much about anything, and I tried to talk without a script. I couldn't do it, so I would actually just write something out, and it turned out that they would be long enough to fill 2 or 3 minute segments. I mean, it takes a lot of dialogue to fill 3 minutes of straight talking, or so it felt at the time. And no, that never took off. That never really succeeded. And I shouldn't have said the thing about the 12 listeners, because back in 2011, the YouTube world was different. If you were to put a video out there, it would just get 100 views instantly. And I was really quite surprised when I launched BlackBoxOnlineRadio and got 2 views, maybe one other person and me. And it really was like, wait, hey, what happened to that whole thing about, your 100 views by morning and so on? Yeah, it was just YouTube has really changed a lot since back in the days of 2010 and 11 when I first started putting out content. But I also had my bubble just burst a little bit. Not only did I learn that broadcasting is much more difficult than it seemed, I also had to learn that if you are a brand new individual to anything, you're not just going to start as an all-star. People aren't just going to be like, oh my goodness, this person is so good at everything they do. It is going to be a very, very lengthy uphill journey, because before I ever put out any content on YouTube, I was thinking, you know what? I'm listening to these famous radio hosts. I could do that myself. I'm going to make these little YouTube videos, and I bet a local radio station is going to contact me, and they're going to ask me to be part of the experience. They're going to ask me to be on their show in some way, or maybe even give me my own show. I bet they'll even give me something like a news segment. This guy can do it. Right, right, wrong. Firstly, that never happened. Secondly, as I said, I mean, a lot of people just thought that it was really weird to hear somebody say very loud, brash things when he didn't have any soapbox to stand on, so to speak. But it was not until about 3 weeks ago that I ever got contacted by a radio station. Another announcement is giving a shout out to Essence of the Nocturnal, and you guys can visit this site. Somebody just wrote into the comment section saying that they work with Essence of the Nocturnal. It is an online radio station. They found BBOR because of the similar name, Black Box Online Radio, and simply saying I have an online radio station as well, and was hoping to cross-platform possibly in the future, and we're going to be discussing that a little bit more. There are going to be some collaborative efforts coming out, but the reason why I wanted to share that sort of mangled story with you guys is, in 2011, I thought that I would just, get in contact with a radio station so easily. 10 years. 10 years. And I wasn't even making YouTube videos the whole time, but it took 10 years before the first radio station ever even knew I existed. 10 years. It really is a slow and steady wins the race game. And I made some videos in 2011, right? And I didn't do a lot online for maybe 6 years. I mean, I didn't make YouTube videos for 6 years. In 2017, I just had the idea to start Black Box Online Radio as a pure podcast where I think you guys know the deal. The old Black Box recordings are still out there, but I was definitely inspired to do it by a guy named Webster Tarpley, who used to appear on InfoWars a lot, but he hosts the show World Crisis Radio, and in 2017 I was listening to him a lot, and I noticed on World Crisis Radio that he was someone who was very familiar with the content that he was talking about, but he didn't have a lot of the traditional broadcasting characteristics, and he had some imperfections in his presentation. You can hear him fumbling around with papers during the episodes, or he isn't talking in just a crystal clear, perfect voice the whole time. He had those things that a normal person would have if they were hosting a radio show, and I just thought I could do this. I mean, I could really do this. A big thing that was discouraging to me was, if you listen to whatever famous radio host you're thinking of, they're probably just going to be able to articulate in a completely solid fashion. And it would amaze me when I would listen to those guys, back in 2011, that they don't mispronounce a single word. They don't stutter at all. It's like, wow, they really are just giving this crystal clear stream of information, even if it were things that I disagreed with. But I started listening to Webster Tarpley host his show, and again, he's not coming at it as someone who was a trained broadcaster. He was presenting himself as a historian and a theorist and just sharing his ideas, but I was like, wow, I could do that. So that was a secondary factor in starting Black Box Online Radio. But I mean, you can see where the channel is right now, and it's been going on for 4.5 years. 4 years before I got 1,000 subscribers. I mean, uphill battle. Slow and steady wins the race. I know they have those little stories that they tell us as kids. Guess what? Some of them actually have a solid meaning. But I really hope that this thing will work out with Essence of the Nocturnal. I will try to collaborate or talk to or discuss things with most people. Now, sometimes I get into trouble because other people try to do some mischievous things, and I'm sure I'm not perfect, but sometimes I do get into trouble because I'm very trusting or I'll put myself out there. But I'm definitely going to pursue this more. Also, I've been collaborating with the YouTube channel Horizon Eye Productions with something about the Zodiac Killer, which will come out next week. Knock on wood, inshallah. Enrich with possibility. Something like that, right? So let's just hope that comes out in the next future, and that would be done on Zodiac Monday, if everything goes well, so to speak. But yes, I'm looking forward to that one, and it was a good experience working with Horizon Eye Productions. Got to see the finished product of our new Zodiac Killer video that we've been working on. So many things going on, and there are other channels to like and subscribe to as well. The Interviews with the Expert series on the Zodiac Killer channel is another one that I've been doing regularly. There's a new interview out with Howard Davis, who is the author of The Real Zodiac Manson Connection, and you can listen to that interview. And if you're super, super curious what the Zodiac Manson connection would look like in fictitious form, you can once again read Killer on a White Horse by me, Ned DeHaan. Another announcement or I don't even know if this is an announcement, just something that might possibly happen in the future is I might do some new segments on the channel. First, this year I've been doing a regular segment about the disappearance of Donna Lass from 1970, but I'm almost thinking that that is reaching its conclusion for now. I mean, the conclusion for me, I certainly cannot provide you with answers about what happened to Donna Lass, and I'm rather disappointed that I am not closer to doing so. So I guess the best expression to use is that series is winding down. However, I would love to start a new true crime series in its place, whether it's something that is very broad, or maybe if you just want to hear about serial killers, or if you want to do it very narrow about a single case, like a deep dive segment. And at least one person wrote in saying they want to hear about the Long Island serial killer. At least one person wrote in saying they wanted to hear about D.B. Cooper. And Jack the Ripper, I think, would be another good choice, or I might even just make a list of like 4 or 5, and people can vote on them, because the Disappearance of Donna Lass series was voted on by you guys. I polled the audience and I asked what people wanted to hear about, and they said the Disappearance of Donna Lass, and I'm so glad, though, that I did that over the past several months, because the amount of clarity with that case that I think myself, the audience, everyone who maybe has listened to some episodes, has really been smooth over, because there's a lot of disinfo, way more than some of the other possible Zodiac crimes. With the disappearance of Donna Lass, like if you read a news article about her, and she disappeared on September 6th of 1970 at approximately 1:45 in the morning while working the 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. shift at the Sahara Tahoe Hotel in State Line, Nevada. I mean, if you were to read a newspaper article about her, you'll probably get some piece of disinfo, and it took a long time to sort through all of that info and find out, all right, where are the diamonds and where is the rough? Like, it took a long time, and I think that the understanding is somewhat in a good place. Michael Morford contributed a lot to that just through his correspondences with me, as well as the info he shared on the interviews with the expert series, but I'd love to do something new. And another possibility out there for a future episode is to do something in a completely different direction. This would totally be a one-off. I would not do it regularly, but I might do a true crime brew episode. I want to tell you guys, I do not drink. I had my own battle with alcoholism in my early 20s. I mean, really about the age of 24. Okay, I mean, it's not about, it was the age of 24, but that was a long time ago. And I'm just quite curious because I've heard other channels out there, particularly True Crime Brewery, where they do a drink and talk about certain true crime cases, but I would have to really, really try and pay attention to what I was saying because I've been horribly critical of those true crime podcasts that are all about humor, like they're making fun of the substance material, because I do not want to do that. However, I thought that I did some episodes that may have been in that territory. I was definitely having a laugh at the Case Breakers for their ridiculous theory about Gary Post as the Zodiac Killer, but that's not mocking anything about the case. I was mocking the Case Breakers themselves and their terrible evidence. But even that, I mean, I'm laughing at someone in the true crime world. Very few regrets, though, but I was like, why don't I have regrets, you know? Or there was another one that I did during the New Orleans Axeman series, which again you can find here on Black Box Online Radio. A whole bunch of true crime discussions that have happened this year, and it's only November, many more to come. But I was definitely poking fun at someone who probably wasn't even the killer. There's a letter that was written during the New Orleans Axeman's Reign of Terror, where I'm sure you've heard about this in the early part of the 20th century. Some guy wrote a letter saying that if you don't have a jazz band playing, then you're going to be a victim of the Axeman. And I don't believe the letter was actually written by the killer. And Miriam C. Davis, who is the author of the book The Axeman of New Orleans, the definitive authority of the case, really also does not believe that that was written by the killer. And yeah, I was having some laughs at the person's expense because number one, I believe that that was a hoaxer, but I really wanted to put my finger on it. Why do I think it is acceptable to do something in a humorous way about those types of people, whether it's the investigators or about this true crime hoaxer, and even about a serial killer? Like, why is it acceptable? You know, like, I mean, if I'm the person who thinks this, and the answer that I will give you is, you are not making fun of the victims, because they are the people who are most important in that situation. And even with a serial killer, you're not making fun of the experiences and tragedies in their life that molded their personality in that way. You are highlighting the absurdity of their actions. And that's also true for people who put out evidence that is almost surely false or just unbelievable to the point where it makes you literally laugh out loud. And I think that that's important because I said that I've been very critical of those humor shows, including BuzzFeed's True Crime page, because it was just so shocking to me about how they were mocking the victims and their families, and yeah, they're trying to highlight the absurd nature of something, but if somebody actually died or a missing persons case where somebody disappeared, uh, why would they go after the people who don't deserve it at all? In the past, I wanted to say that, okay, a serial killer commits some terrible crimes, absolutely heinous actions, and whatever happens to them is their fault. If people are going to have a laugh at their expense, it's that person's fault. That person deserves no sympathy or anything. They murdered people, and if someone is laughing at them for being ridiculous, so be it. And that's what I thought in the past. But really, I didn't find that that was a very satisfying explanation, because instead I think that it almost has nothing to do with the serial killer himself. And I don't even want to make fun of the person who had a horrible childhood who went on to do horrible things. No, you're not going to find humor in that. I mean, I don't find humor in that. I don't think that it's responsible to find humor in something like that. But if you are going to highlight the absurdity of someone's life, it has to be around the actions that are disassociated from the killer, just the whole situation in general. For example, not everyone who has bad life experiences goes on to become a serial killer, and if you do, you're a rotten douchebag. So, I think that that is something that goes without saying. It's just maybe from time to time we need to rethink things in a certain way. But I did one episode last winter when I tried Katie, which is meant to be Molly's sister. Katie is a form of legalized ecstasy, which is a combination of different vitamins and caffeine. I think it's vitamin D, vitamin B, and a lot of caffeine in it. And I recorded that here on BlackBoxOnlineRadio for one of the AMAs. And I thought it was going to be an absolute dud and it just wouldn't do anything. But no, it does. It does something. And you can hear my response to that. And somebody wrote in the comments section, it's so different to hear you all like high and hyper and so on, because you seem really serious in most of the recordings. And the reason why I seem serious in most of the recordings is because we're talking about true crime cases, and I want to approach them with a certain sense of empathy and fairness toward the victims and their families. And I've made mistakes in the past. I've been way too cozy with the guesswork. And I've said this once and I'll say it again. Back in 2018, I did an episode on the disappearance of Emmanuel Boachi from Canada. And somebody wrote into the channel saying, I'm a family friend and I don't like what you're saying. You're making too many assumptions about him. He was already found dead. Your video is insensitive, which was just a black box podcast at the time. And at first I was like, I don't know who this person is. I want to say something, but there are people out there who are trolls, who are genuine liars. And I waited about 24 hours and I learned the news that yes, indeed, he was found dead. And I just felt terrible. I mean, I was just giving my thoughts on the case. This is what I think happened. But it turned out everything I was saying was wrong. And that's one of the reasons why I do not do too many lesser known missing persons cases, because of that very reason. But I'm trying to definitely approach the true crime world in a way that is going to just be that. Be fair, but be empathetic. However, I do not believe there is anything wrong with highlighting the absurdities of life from time to time. An exception to the rule about missing persons cases is the disappearance of William Higgins that occurred in 1969. I was contacted by his son, Bruce, who was just responding to some material about the Zodiac Killer, and I devoted part of an episode to the disappearance of William Higgins last week, Zodiac Monday, actually, to anyone who's listening to these things as they come out regularly. And I will definitely do a follow-up, because I had some comments come in about the disappearance of William Higgins, and Bruce also sent me a follow-up response that I would love to read off, so that would be an exception, but, I mean, that is really quite different, as a family member provided almost all of the source material, his own son nonetheless, as opposed to me just watching a couple YouTube videos and trying to use my intuition and do a bunch of guesstimations about what may have happened on certain days. That was not appropriate on my part. I try to avoid that in the future. I try to avoid that now, but in the future, I hope that you will hear the follow-up episode on the disappearance of William Higgins. There's a very big story, because the narrative is that this guy William Higgins disappeared in 1969 as a walk-away, going to start a new life off the grid. But his son Bruce strongly suggests that there was an instance of foul play. So I invite you to check out anything new that's coming out this weekend. And the last thing is, I received a comment on an episode that I did back in 2019, and that was about O.J. Simpson. It was the episode that I did on O.J. Simpson, and the Glenn Rogers theory that Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman were not murdered by O.J. Simpson, but in fact by a serial killer named Glenn Rogers, who was known as the Casanova Killer. And back in 2019, I talked about the Zodiac Killer, but not as frequently as I do now. I didn't have a Zodiac Monday segment, and it really did surprise me that I would even go months without talking about the Zodiac. This was truly a random topic channel where I would only talk about, well, I would talk about absolutely anything. I meant to say, I mean, there were things about politics, things about history, things about, books that I was reading at the time. I did an episode on Milton Friedman once. Two of them, actually. It's a two-parter. But I did a lot about the O.J. Truther movement, and even back in the early parts of the second decade of this millennium, like 2011, 12, 13, I would get back into the O.J. rabbit hole, and I couldn't figure out why at first. I was like, this is just for people who cannot let things go. They cannot accept the cold, bitter reality, and they just keep rethinking things. But I noticed that the more I learned about OJ, the more I wanted to hear more about the OJ Simpson trial, and that might be a possible choice for the new future deep dive podcast segment. As I said, some names like Jack the Ripper, the Long Island serial killer D.B. Cooper, those are unsolved cases. But with O.J. Simpson, I mean, I guess it technically is an unsolved case, the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, because O.J. was not convicted, he was found not guilty. And the Glenn Rogers angle, I do not endorse that anyway. I do not believe the O.J. truthers, but I talked about the theories. I even did an episode trying to dispel some of the alternative theories, but they are widely, widely discussed, widely mentioned and shared on the internet. And I've always said on this channel, if somebody has a theory out there, or somebody has written a book, or even has a single article about their true crime theory, I'll talk about it. I might not always be warm and fuzzy about it like I did with those case breakers, calling it a bunch of horse crap and just being like, F you case breakers, you're a bunch of frauds. Yeah, I will call some people out. Most of the time I try to remain as balanced as possible, but there will be exceptions, however. It's not even so much the O.J. Truther movement is, I just was so tempted to go back down that rabbit hole and revisit that world. So that might be another future possibility, and always listening to things from the audience. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. And there have been so many true crime episodes on this channel over this year, and whether it's been talking about the disappearance of Lee Cutler, the Rubin cipher, as well as the Joan Webster episodes, the murder of Maria Newsy. I mean, there have been so many wonderful encounters that I find, and I've discovered so much, and I've shared this with you, and you guys added to the comments section. And when I say wonderful, I purely mean just getting a bigger understanding of humanity, because that's what the true crime world is all about. About the greater understanding of humanity, as well as the sciences, of course. I mean, forensics can cover more like ballistics and fingerprinting, DNA, a greater understanding of everything. Let's just say that. That's the wonderful experience. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode and listening to all the updates about Black Box Online Radio. If there's anything that you would like to hear about in the future, you can put your idea down in the comment section below. I am thankful for you guys. You are excellent in every aspect of fandom. Alright, so happy Thanksgiving one more time, and I'll see you on Instagram for the bonus podcast. Until next time.